Yeah, that was the email. It's fine. Got the gist.
Not too often we have some.
Why? Hey, Steve.
See how he handles himself. Kind of see how it's raised.
Yeah.
Young politician in the making, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Another alibi.
See what happens.
He's got the money and he's got the guy.
Said that he had spent last summer doing like an internship in the state legislature.
I got a card.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. We'll go through a little bit of how tonight's format will run, and then I will hand everything over to Mr. Minnie here to moderate our event. This will be approximately 90 minutes in length. We've asked our candidates not to provide any campaign materials, that kind of thing, so we're asking for no actually exchange of materials this evening. We've drawn lots to figure out the order for tonight's question. So Mr. Gomez has drawn lot 1, Mr. Larkin lot 2, Ms. Pater lot 3, Mr. Murray lot 4. How we will do this is each candidate will have 2 minutes to provide an opening statement in the order of which lots they've drawn. And then we will begin in questions. So the questions will start with Remy and go down to Mike. Second question will start with Mr. Larkin, and so on and so forth in a round robin style. Each question, I think they'll have 90 seconds to answer. If they exceed the 90-second mark, Deb Reed here is keeping time for us. She will cut them off, and then we'll proceed on to the next candidate. At the closing this evening, then, we have each candidate has the opportunity for a 2-minute closing as well. I will be going around. If anyone has questions, you can certainly write that down. We will be filtering for appropriateness this evening. Each question has been vetted out. No candidate has been given questions in advance. If there are any questions, I would entertain those at this time. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Good luck to the candidates.
Well, good evening and welcome to the 2020 Mayoral Forum. I am your moderator this evening. I am Joe Minnie. I want to thank Tina Thompson, Executive Director of the Tomah Chamber and Visitor Center, for coordinating this event. And I also want to thank Best Western for allowing us to have this venue for this event. So we've already done introductions, so Deb is ready for timekeeping. So for first 2 minutes intro, we will begin with Mr. Remy Gomez. No, you can sit. Feel free to sit. Is it on?
There we go.
There we go. I'd like to say thank you to Tina and the Chamber for putting this on, Deb and Joe for assisting her, everybody that's here, Greg for putting this on. My name is Remy Gomez. I am 37 years old, born and raised here in Tomah. Tomah guy through and through. Previously sat on City Council, 8th District. I was beat out by Sue Holm in the last spring election. I also sat on the Board of Appeals, Vice Chair of the Long Range Planning Commission, sit on the Planning Commission, and also the Ambulance Committee. I don't have 2 good minutes to really talk about myself, so I'm gonna leave it right there. Thank you for coming.
I would like to start out by thanking everybody for coming here tonight. This is a extremely important exercise as it concerns our American democracy. I would also like to thank the Tomah Visitor and Chamber Center for putting this on tonight. My name is Brett Larkin. I'm a Tomah High School senior, and I plan on attending UWL this coming fall. I'm among the 4th generation of Larkins in the city of Tomah to grow up and live here. And being in the 4th generation, it's clear that my family history runs deep in this community. And with that long family history also comes one common value in my family, and that's selfless service, putting our community before ourselves. With my dad and my grandpa being on the fire department, my brother being an EMT, I also wanted to follow into the footsteps of them and put my community before myself, so I always, since I was little, wanted to be a police officer. However, that changed at the beginning of last year when the Tomah School Board succeeded in limiting the rights of fellow students at Tomah High School, when they banned a controversial symbol, the Confederate flag, which I'm opposed to, but my love for the First Amendment highly outweighs my opposition to the Confederate flag. Through that experience, it led to me working for the State Assembly, for the State Assembly Majority Leader's office over this past summer, and that's where I found public office was much better suited for me than being a first responder. However, our local first responders are a huge reason as to why I'm here tonight, for the simple fact that they feel forgotten by the current city leadership. And I feel that no one that puts their community before themselves, no one that exercises the value of selfless service should ever feel forgotten by the city they serve. So that is why I'm running for mayor, and I hope I can count on your support.
Thank you all for coming. I would like to just give you a summary of who I am and where I come from. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Nellie Pater. I know all of you, some of you already know that. Although I'm not a native of Tomah, I feel as though I'm a local because I've lived here for 20 plus years. I come from a large family of 7, and we were all raised in Chicago. My parents were hardworking business owners who taught their children what it takes to be successful in a competitive world. I've had the opportunity to travel all over the country due to my military husband. While stationed overseas, I was hired with Department of Army. When I returned stateside, I was offered a job at Fort Sheridan, Illinois. Due to post-closing, I took another position at Fort McCoy. While looking for a place to raise my children, we found Tomah had everything we were looking for: safe and friendly community. We raised 3 successful children here, all in Tomah, and are very proud to say that they are a product of Tomah. Presently, my husband Tony works for the Postal Service and has been delivering mail for 24 years here in Tomah. I've worked for Department of Army in various positions, serving our men and women in the military for 40 years as a civilian. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Mike Murray. Thank all that were involved, echo the sentiments of those that have spoken prior to me, for those that made this evening possible. A mayoral forum, as we go through this, I have been the mayor of Tomah for the last 2 years. I was on the council for a number of years prior to that. A lot of what's going to be discussed tonight is going to come down to basically 2 things: idealism and realism. As we view things throughout the city, as sitting in the mayor's chair for the last 2 years, idealistically, there's an awful lot of things that I would really have liked to have seen happening for the city. But the reality is, there's only certain things that can happen, whether it's from a fiscal standpoint, whether it's from a monetary, a labor standpoint. And that's, part of working with the city. The other thing about being the mayor is, while it's important that I have thought processes and beliefs, it's important too that the mayor has to rely on the city council. There's a large number of city council members here tonight. Running and looking at a city does not come down to one individual's thought process. We have a city administrator, we have a council, we have a mayor, we have a city attorney. And bottom line, it's bringing all of these people together to figure out what is in the best interest of the city of Tomah. As we go through tonight, and what I'd like to echo in the last 2 years is there are some things that people have not been thrilled about that have happened with the city, but the things that have happened were things that had to happen based on reality and not necessarily idealism.
Well, thank you, candidates. We're going to pass the microphone down. Just a quick reminder, if you have your cell phone on, volume up or anything, please turn it down or off so we don't get interruptions. We're going to start our first question with Mr. Gomez. So, question number 1. Tomah has a weak mayoral system with a full-time city administrator. What do you feel the role of the mayor is in Tomah, and how will your leadership benefit the city?
Going first again?
Yep.
Going first again right away. First off, I've had the great pleasure of knowing our city administrator for the last 4 or 5 years now. Roger's a heck of a smart guy. That whole staff there at the city hall, all of our department heads across the board, smart guys and girls all the way across. The role of the mayor, or what I feel the role of the mayor in that particular instance should be, is collaboration. Getting everybody on the same page, not necessarily having the first thought or the last thought or even the loudest thought, but being open-minded, approaching every situation with an open mind. It's the way I handle a lot of things. Pragmatic in your ways. Get everybody's viewpoints. We got some great department heads. No matter which one of the 4 of us take this seat, the same department heads are going to sit there, and they're the same ones that sat there and that have got us to this point. And the job of us would be to collaborate with them.
I believe the duty of any public official is first and foremost to uphold and defend the Constitution, whether that's local government, state government, or the federal government. Following that, I believe it is the mayoral's job, especially of Tomah, to be an ambassador to promote our city to surrounding communities, to come here and to invest in Tomah. With that, I also believe we should be working with our state leaders to get the resources we need in Tomah. I believe it's the mayor's obligation to do everything they can outside of the city to promote prosperity and growth in this community.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. So Tomah has a weak mayoral system with a full-time city administrator. What do you feel the role of the mayor is in Tomah, and how will your leadership benefit the city?
As past mayor, I have qualifications on how the city works. Being involved in many projects and things that have been done in the city the last 10 years. I've seen it grow. I've seen things happen here. And in experience, I know what it takes. I've seen it, I've done it, I've been involved in it. And also having the community work together as partners to see the outcome as the city moves forward. So for me, I think it's a partnership with the community as well as outside resources like the state and federal government to really bring in people to help us get our growth and development here. Tomah has many things that are good, and they see the future. I see a future of many things to happen here. So working together and knowing what Tomah really needs is what makes our city will grow.
It's an interesting phrasing when they say a weak mayoral system. While that may be true in the sense of having a city administrator available to the city, the reality is that there is strength in numbers. The city administrator is going to, on his full-time duty, as the mayoral position is a part-time position, in his full-time duties, he's going to go out and try to seek out what are the best things for the city of Tomah, what he feels might benefit where the strength in numbers comes in is the fact that he brings those things not just to the mayor, but he brings them to the city council and the mayor. So as a group, again, strength in numbers. You have 9 minds, along with the city administrator's mind, working on every possible avenue to anything that's presented to the city to determine if there's anything we're missing. Are there any loopholes to any things that are being presented, so that when we do enter or broach a subject, we are doing it in a manner where we have full knowledge of everything that's happening, and we've kind of crossed our I's and crossed our T's and dotted our I's, again, to make sure we're doing what's in the best interest of the city of Tomah.
Okay, moving on to question number 2, and let's start with Mr. Larkin. Do you feel the transportation options available in Tomah adequately meet the needs of the residents? And if not, what can be done to fix the issues?
No. I've heard quite a few proposals such as an Uber system in Tomah or other forms of public transportation. That is something I would definitely be open to discussing with the council, but as far as the transportation system goes now, I don't think it's adequate.
I would have to agree with Brett. I remember when our transportation came here, it was supposed to be a wonderful thing for the city, and it has not been. It doesn't meet the need of our citizens, our veterans, and we really need to work on trying to find a way to make transportation available, because that's the only way. I mean, most of us have to get to and from in our cars, and we're a big city. I mean, we need that transportation to get around. Some people can't afford to have a vehicle to get them from A to B, but they have no transportation to get to the doctor, to get to the VA, to get to Fort McCoy, to get to the grocery store. And the transportation that we have now is not always available. There's a time limit there. So we have to find a way to bring transportation into our community, because as we grow, we're going to need that access there for us to get our citizens to where they need to go.
Well, this will harken back to what I was speaking of earlier, of idealism versus realism. Idealistically, we would have a cab service that's available to handle all of the needs of the city. What we have to remember is with Tomah Transit, this is not the decision of the company that owns it. It's not the decision of the city. It's the decision of the state of Wisconsin. The state of Wisconsin actually mandates how many hours the cab system can run in a week. Thereby, the onus falls upon that company to decide, do we have 3 drivers on Mondays between 1 and 4, or when do we schedule these people? Again, they are mandated by the state of Wisconsin as to how many hours their drivers can drive. They would love to have more drivers available, but this is not their decision. Idealistically, yes, it would be great to have cabs running all over the place, but the reality is they are limited by what the state allows. Again, we can speak of Uber, we can speak of Lyft. These are all independently owned companies. It's something that the city itself really has virtually no control over. So again, from the city's standpoint, we're not going to go out and open a cab service. We have provided for the citizens everything we can provide up to this point in time, again, under the parameters that the state has set out. But we're not going to be in the business of opening a cab service. So it's just something we'll have to continue to work on.
Well, I'm super glad I get to go last on this one, because I agree with all of them, to be honest. Is it adequate? No. Ideally, would we like to have 20 cabs there and everybody have a cab service for each district in our city? Yeah. But the reality is that we're growing at a rate that we weren't really prepared for, to be honest. Goes back to something that I said in previous campaigns, is you don't plan for tomorrow, you won't be prepared for today. And that's exactly where we are in a lot of aspects with our city, this being one of them. Do I have a good solution? No. Would I be interested in sitting down with some people that have some concrete solutions? You betcha. Anybody up here would be. But as far as a viable option, I hate to say that there's not really one right there, other than patience, understanding, people are human, and they're doing a job, and they're doing the best that they can under the restrictions that they have. So, yeah.
Okay, moving on to question number 3. And Ms. Pater is the first answer. So the question is, what role do you feel the city's established committees and departments play when presenting proposals to the city for action?
That's a hard one because we have many department heads in the city that in the city council that they report to the city council, and each of them have a role to do. I would say that by getting together and talking to each department as to what the need is and what they need and what is good for the city is something that departments need to talk to each other. I don't have a solution to that one, and that is something that I feel that departments do need to get together and talk to each other and see what the need is in the cities to make it happen.
Well, again, when it comes to committees, sometimes it has to come down to exactly the depth of the issue at hand. The biggest role of committees is to pretty much vet things prior to coming to the committee of the whole and the city council. And what is looked for there is for everybody to kind of filter out any information that maybe isn't pertinent to the subject at that particular moment. On the other hand, if we start getting into bigger subjects, it may extend beyond just looking at committee recommendations. I'll go back to an issue where it was suggested and proposed that the ambulance, the new garage, be built up by the current hospital. I had been getting a number of inquiries as to, or statements about concern about that location. So what I did in July of 2018, I did a survey through SurveyMonkey of the Tomah area ambulance service and all of their employees. And by asking them the questions of those people that worked on the ambulance commission, on the ambulance committee, what their thought processes were regarding where the ambulance garage was going to be built, over 70% disagreed with that location because they were more concerned about being able to get to their patients quicker in a more heavily populated area. So in that instance, it's better to look deeper than just at the committee level.
I think the role of committees are huge. Again, they do the vetting, they do the dirty work, if you will, getting to the brass tacks of it before it's brought to council. Having previously sat on council, the reason I was so prepared is because all the information was right there. Every committee that it goes through, what a lot of people don't understand is a lot of things that happen hop through committee through committee through committee. So it's idea after idea after idea, and this isn't elected officials sitting there. This is common citizens. This is people that have insight into business on a personal level. So it's a lot of ideas and input going into it before it gets to council. So the role of committee, which I think the question was, it is huge. It's a vital part in what we do.
Could you repeat the question again?
Yes. What role do you feel the city's established committees and departments play when presenting proposals to the city for action?
I believe exactly what everybody else has been saying is vetting what needs to come as proposals to the city council and to the mayor. I'm not in government or haven't participated in that level of government, so I don't have a great answer on this as of now. But I would say it's to adequately communicate with one another and vet.
Okay, question number 4. This is for you, Mr. Murray. What is your position of the City of Tomah providing incentives to private industry?
Actually, I'm in favor of it, again, but that is, there's a caveat to that. It has to be examined, it has to look at where does the benefit go to private industry versus the residual benefit to the city of Tomah. I will I will look back to a very prominent businessman of many years in the city of Tomah, Vic Bernstead. I remember being 22 years old and working for Vic, and I don't know why I asked him the question, but I will never forget asking this question. I said, Vic, if you had to tell me what the key to your success has been, what would you say it is? And he looked at me and said, Mike, sometimes you can't be afraid to lose $10 in order to make 100. And as a city, we have to step back and say, if we're going to incentivize businesses to come into Tomah, what, again, is that residual benefit to the city? Do we spend money in order to coerce or entice somebody to come in that is going to add numerous jobs to the city? I will take out to Toro when they added on the $30 million paint portion of that plant. We did I did some mathematical calculations, and you started looking at what the hourly wages are going to be. You're bringing over an additional $2 million a year into the city of Tomah in the form of wages. Well, that in of itself, to me, is a no-brainer. Invest in that because it will return to you.
I 100% agree with the mayor. Incentive to build has been seriously around, honestly, as long as building itself. There comes a time where a little bit of nudge gets a project done that booms another project that supports the whole district, and allows for a renovation to be possible of an entire downtown off one risk that really isn't even much of a risk. And if you follow local politics, you know the exact building I'm talking about. That building's going to spur downtown. Did we give it a loan, an incentive to build? You betcha. That's our job as a city. Take that risk because it's going to outweigh anything that or the reward is going to outweigh anything that we could potentially lose.
With incentivizing private investment, we always have to look at the cost-benefit analysis. If the private investment's going to prosper and grow the community, absolutely. But if it's just going to be a bust and that was a waste of city money, then no.
Can you repeat, please?
Yep. What is your position of the City of Tomah providing incentives to private industry?
I think it's a good thing. As most of our business people here that want to open a need assistance within to build to make their business grow. A lot of small businesses need help in making that. I think by giving an incentive to businesses will get them to our city. We do have to consider how big the incentive is because, again, we're talking dollars, but in the long run, I think incentives, if you offer them, people will come here. And we're trying to grow. And nowadays, and this money is tight for everyone, and by bringing small businesses in here, not so much big businesses, because it takes a long time. So I think by giving incentives to business people to bring them here is something that I definitely think is a good idea.
Back down to Mr. Gomez. Okay, our 5th question for this evening. What is your opinion of the fire and ambulance departments merging into a new facility and working together under one roof?
Well, sitting on the committee, and being there for the last year and a half, or year on the committee. Again, sitting there vetting, getting down to the brass tacks of where we want to put it, a location, cost analysis. I think it's awesome. I think it's long overdue. As I spoke before, we're getting to the size where if we don't start to plan for the future, we're going to be caught with our pants down. And it's never a good thing. We're in that situation again, and a couple things in the city that are huge. When it comes to fire and rescue, when it comes to ambulance, I think it's huge. Being able to train in the same building, being able to share some common ground, some sleeping quarters, putting them on the same thing is genius, I think. Working with the director and the administrator to really nail it down and get some things done. It takes a whole lot of people to make this happen, and I'm happy to be a part of it, and I think it's a great thing.
Living with a firefighter and a EMT, I can tell you that I definitely support combining the EMS and the fire department into one building. But however, we have to be careful with this because they already feel like there's being shortcuts made, whether that be a exercise room or the limiting of beds. We need to be careful. This needs to be a well thought out project. We can't afford shortcuts. If we're going to build, we need to build right.
My feeling on a structure for the fire department and ambulance service is very important to this community. And I say this because we are growing. And what we have now is very small, and I feel that it's just not enough to accommodate and to make sure that this community is safe when it comes to large fires. Most of the buildings development that we are building is outside the city, and we have a lot of small suburbs out there, and having them working together in a building that is equipped with everything they need is something that the city really needs to think about doing, and doing right away, because we are at 10,000 people and we're going to grow, and we have grown for the last 10 years. So what it takes, funding, as far as funding for this building, we got to find the money to do it. It is time to get this building built so that this community is safe when it comes to fires or any other things that, disasters that we have in our community.
And this is one of those subjects that I look back on, and I look back happily during my tenure as the mayor. This is, we go back to question one where we spoke about the weak mayoral system, but where the strength of it came in is the fact that through the conversations and the backing of the city council and the mayor and the discussions with the city administrator, is when we kind of held off on the initial building of the ambulance garage. And through that process, we were able to look deeper at things. And then the concept of realizing that the fire department itself was in need of new facility. By holding off, by stepping back, by working together as a council, as an administrator with the fire chief, the director of the ambulance service, we have visited numerous fire department and ambulance service combo areas. Some have visited, I visited down to Lake Delton, some have visited numerous, and what they're garnering from that is, what did they learn? Here's the positives, here's the negatives, do this, don't do that. But again, this is one of those things that there have been no plans drawn up at this point in time. So sizes of rooms, things like that, that's conversation, that there's nothing solidified on that. But the one thing we are realizing is that by combining those two areas, the potential to save hundreds of thousands of dollars from building two separate buildings and now just building one is a bonus for the city.
Okay, question number 6. Where do you stand on TID developments and why?
I support TIDs just because I believe it's not only a way for outside businesses to come in to invest in Tomah, but for our current businesses to grow. I believe it's vital to get that tax revenue from those TIDs while increasing surrounding property values.
Again,
Where do you stand on TID developments and why?
I think TID development is a good thing if it is done properly. We have 3 TIDs in the area right now. We have it by the hospital, we have downtown, and we have it at Industrial Park. TIDs do not really bring in revenue right away. It takes time, and by bringing TIDs in, by making revenue, we have to bring in development, big development. So I do believe they work. It helps put together development in the city, but it's something that is, money isn't generated really quickly as much as we want to, so with patience and doing it the right way, it will work. And if we work together, we can make it a good thing for all the community.
Well, I think number one, the biggest thing is that TIDs tend to be misunderstood. Actually, probably it was the very last conversation I ever had with my brother on this earth. He called me up, and a guy that was not political called me up to ask me about what did a TID mean? What does this mean? Because when he was at work, all these people were talking about TIDs, and he just had no concept of what it meant. We go back to talking about earlier question. We were talking about incentivizing businesses to come to Tomah. Are you in favor of that? Well, that really is what a TID district is. What you're doing is you're taking businesses, you're incentivizing them to get bigger, grow stronger, build bigger buildings, because it's going to form a stronger tax base for your community. Yes, it does mean that the city does dole money out to begin with, but what it's meant for is to gain greater amounts of tax in the long run. The TID that is developed out by the new hospital, the beauty of a TID like that is there's nothing drawing against that TID. The minute the first tax payment is made on that property, that is a profitable TID. Now, what that is that is a donor TID, which means money that is garnered from that area out there can be loaned or distributed to other TIDs that if they're not getting paid back as quickly as they'd like, we're able to again take care of the city in a multifaceted manner while reinvesting in our own city and the people that want to develop here.
Stole my answer there at the end. I don't know how you got that all in the last 30 seconds.
I thought
but
it was.
that was awesome. That was awesome. Again, it takes a collaboration of people. You can do things right, you can do things wrong. When you have a good base of leadership, a good base of city administrator and committees, knowledgeable city council, and an active mayor, TID districts are awesome. It is exactly that. It's the incentive that we all talked about to build. The district is just the area designated where we're giving the incentive to. Again, I spoke about the downtown district. We had 10 districts total. Hospital's the 10th one. TIDs have been successful in Tomah because we've done them properly. We've done them well. We've been pragmatic in where we put them and the expansions that go into them. Fiscally responsible, I think. And like he said at the end, the hospital rate was assessed at essentially nothing. So to say what Nellie said, they do start making money right away if there's nothing there. So that did literally start making money the moment those doors opened and the moment that first tax payment comes in. So if done properly, it is a great thing. And in a growing city, in an area on the south side, it's only going to get bigger. So have faith.
Okay, question number 7. It has been publicly discussed that if or when the city of Tomah's population reaches 10,000 people, certain mandates and state requirements kick in. Do you know what they are, and do you have ideas on how to handle them?
I do not know what the mandate is. Right now, we are at, I want to say 9,000, a little over. And I have lived here for 20 years, and I've seen it grow at least 3,500 people within the last 10 years. I can't give you an answer on that one. If I do, I'd have to make it up because I do not know what those mandates are. So basically, that's my input on it.
One of the mandates, I don't know, I don't know, I know one of the mandates is going to require, in regards to your fire protection. But again, when we talk about strengthening fire protection, having, full-time members, again, that only helps the city, and then for a lot of people, don't even understand how it helps them, but having worked in the insurance industry, the stronger your fire department rating, the better the insurance rating is for your area, which means your homeowner's insurance actually drops. So by having a strengthened fire department, you will have lower homeowner's insurance. As regards to other mandates, I am not familiar with those. That would be one of those items that I would rely on the city administrator to keep myself and the city council informed on those.
To be honest, kind of in the same boat. I knew about the full-time fire chief, full-time fire services. Once you hit 10,000, I'll be super excited we get to change that sign finally to 10,000. That'll be an awesome thing. I'm tired of, feel like we've sat at 9,000 something for the last 20 years, and it's been kind of bugging me. Regardless of what that sign says, we impact a greater area than just 9,000 people. If you go a mile outside of our city limits right now, you're still hitting kids that are in Tomah Area School District. You're still hitting local workers. You're still hitting County Road right on the outside, and people that matter. So when we think about full-time fire, it's the response time that we can get to everybody. That area that ambulance and that fire can cover is now bigger, and bigger for everybody. It doesn't just stop at the Tomah borders. But as far as the other stuff, again, I'd go sit with one of the smartest guys I know when it comes to city business, and I'll be the first to tell you, I'll go sit right at Roger's office and ask him what it is. Mike might beat me there tomorrow, but maybe I'll even text Roger on the way home, so I can tell you that we'll get you some good answers.
Yeah, that's actually the only mandate that I'm aware about. I've discussed it a little bit with Chief Adler and with the lower insurance cost, but that goes back to why it is such a priority that we build a combined ambulance and fire building. If we're going to go full time, this project needs to be done.
Question number 8. What should the working relationship be between the city of Tomah and the chamber?
Well, considering the fact that your Chamber of Commerce is basically your advertising committee, they're the ones that are promoting you. The city of Tomah should be working as closely as they possibly can, hand in hand with the chamber. It is their public relations department. If you have any level of discord between the two, where's the drive, the incentive, the motive, the excitement for a member of the Chamber of Commerce and the Visitors Bureau to want to promote a city that doesn't promote them? It's as in any workplace, you work with each other to create a team so that you are stronger. There are numerous things that Tina and her staff, obviously she's had some turnover, but throughout all of it, she stays strong, keeps pushing forward, and always keeps the best interest of the city in front of her. I remember having a conversation with her prior to the downtown Thursday nights last year, and the panic-stricken conversation that she had of the fear of failure, and what an incredible success that has been and a success for the city of Tomah. So again, from a residual standpoint, we in turn should be thanking them tremendously for, as cliche as it sounds, putting us on the map.
Well, first off, and obviously, none of us would be sitting here right now if the city and the chamber didn't work together. None of us would have this great venue. Tina wouldn't be turning that great shade of red over there that she is right now. And not just because she's sitting here. There's a staff that's not sitting here that works endlessly to make sure that we're promoted. I hear from a lot of Tomah people, well, I don't see it. Well, they're not promoting you. They're promoting people outside of Tomah to get them to come here. Up and down the I-90 corridor, all through there. They are promoting Tomah to the rest of the state. You're already here. They're not marketing you.
In my mayoral narrative that was published in the Tomah Journal, I outlined 3 main initiatives, and the first one is to work hand in hand with the Chamber of Commerce. They are our main marketing organization. They are like our Larkin for Mayor signs, our Mike Murray for Mayor signs. They are the ones that promote us, and if it is the obligation of us, it is incumbent of Tomah's mayor to do everything they can to promote the chamber, because in response they bring that growth to our community. So I think it is absolutely imperative that we work hand in hand with the Chamber of Commerce.
I think that the city has always worked with the chamber, and the chamber has always worked for the city. The chamber does a lot of our promoting, not only in this community, but outside communities, and brings back things that we can, as a city, think about what we can do to make it better. So I think it's very important that we have that relationship for the city, because the chamber brings in businesses and promotes our city back to other businesses that will help us make it a better place. Tina has, she goes out and she promotes Tomah and gets ideas from other businesses, and she has, once a year, she brings in all different kinds of businesses, and they get together about talking what businesses that we can bring in Tomah. So that relationship it is very important that we have that, because the city can't do it all, and she's the voice for the city. She goes out and she promotes what we have and what we have and what we can bring to other peoples that wants to visit here in this community. So it's important.
Moving on to question number 9. Start with Mr. Gomez. What do you feel we spend too much funds on, and what do we not spend enough on?
Dang, I gotta go first for this one, huh?
Yep.
What do we spend too much money on? You know, I hear a lot about taxes, and I think this is probably more along the tax rate and the mill rate question. Tomah's an outstanding community, and you get for what you pay for. I go around to some communities that have some costs a little bit less to live there, and maybe rent's a little cheaper, but you don't get Tomah. You don't get the police service, the dedication that you have from our community, top-notch school district, top-notch fire, rescue, ambulance, police, all the way across the board. What we don't spend enough money on, and watch my tongue on this one, number one thing has on the census for Tomah is, for the last however long, it's been a rec center. Tomah can't bond for it. Obviously, we can't afford it, but I think it's going to take the right people asking for the right donors to get that done. That's something that the common goal here has been growth for Tomah. That's one thing that would be huge for us. We necessarily wouldn't spend the money on it more than the maintenance and upkeep. Yeah.
Well, I can just give one example, and that would be the bathroom by Gillette Park, where you can correct me if I'm wrong, but is it like $400,000 we spent on that? I don't know the exact number, but that, again, that goes back to why one of the main reasons I'm running, and that is for the forgotten people or first responders. They are the ones we need to be spending more money on instead of wasteful spending.
We spend a lot of money as far as things that we really don't need or we can wait for. What we need to really focus on what is needed in the city. And one of the things that I look at is our roads. They're bad, they haven't been worked on, and they're in bad need for repair. It's gonna cost a lot of money. I know that over the years we've worked on sewer. This is a very old community. There's sewer that needs to be replaced in just about every street that we have. And as we grow, we're gonna have to start looking at that, because it's going to be a part where we need to replace sewer, we need to work on our roads, we need to even work on what safety. I agree that fire building, ambulance and fire has to be built, because that is going to be a need very soon, because we're growing and we're growing really fast. And we need to really get serious at building that building.
Well, the topic of how much are we, or where are we spending too much is actually a subjective question, because it all depends on a person's vantage point. I've sat in on the budget hearings for 6 years now, and every department has something within their department that they want to get, that they have to push off for 3 to 5 to 7 years because the money is just not there. So when we want to talk about overspending, again, it depends on where your perspective is. We can talk about the fact that the city is in need of roads. Yeah, they really are. But part of that is the fact that we do not want to repair roads that we're going to dig up in 3 years because the infrastructure needs to be replaced. So you limp along at this point in time in order to get to the point where, yes, we have the money to do both. So we aren't building a new road, tearing it up, and then rebuilding another one in 2 to 3 years. As to where we're not spending enough money, it wasn't long ago that the Cindy Zardi was at the superintendent of schools was at the meeting, and one of the things she had talked about was the fact that Tomah has one of the lowest spending rates, as a city when it comes to education, and I don't feel that's one of the things to be proud of. I think as a community that we need to start looking at spending more of our tax dollars on our educational system, because if we are looking at growing and bringing people to the community, that's one of the top things they're going to look at.
Okay, question number 10. It's going to be with you, Brett. With ideas and input coming from many agencies, groups, and citizens, do you have a plan to ensure as many citizens as possible are being heard, and not just those with more direct access to government officials?
Absolutely. One of the things, again, in my mayoral profile, I said I want to be an active member, not just for people close to me or people that agree with me, but all of Tomah citizens, whether it's teachers, whether it's our small businesses, whether it's anyone, literally anyone in Tomah, to their concerns, if they bring it up to the council or to the mayor. I believe we need to listen and actively listen to everybody and bring their concerns to city government.
One of the reasons why I'm running is because I was approached and of citizens out there. Their biggest complaint is that they do not have representatives that they can talk to. Either their emails are not being answered or their phone calls are not being answered. So they feel that there is no one to talk to. We have to have a relationship between our community, our constituents, that can really, really believe that they can come to us when they have issues. And they're not feeling that right now. There's many things that are happening in the community that they need someone to talk to, and the representatives are never available. So they're coming to me and talking their concerns to me, and that they're constituents. And I always tell them, you have council representatives that you need to talk to about this. Not comfortable, because they feel that they cannot talk to them because they won't listen. So we really need to work on that relationship between our constituents in this community and the city.
Well, it is available in every department. There is a phone, there is an answering machine, there's an email available for every member of the city, be it a department head, be it a city worker, be it a city council member, a city administrator. But again, you know, sometimes the onus lies upon citizens to recognize and realize where they fit in. The city itself is basically a huge collage, and the thing with collages is that if our picture is involved in a collage, we're going to immediately notice. We're going to notice wherever our picture is. Well, we do that because that's what's familiar to us. But the person putting together the collage is looking at how does the collage itself flow? How does every picture, how does every aspect of the things involved in that collage make it one synonymous picture and flowing with clarity? It may be an important subject to an individual, and it deserves being listened to. But as a city, we have to step back and say, how does that affect the overall working and the functionality of the city? So, you know, listening, hearing, being available, they are great things, but it is also the fact that we have to think about the overall big picture of what's happening within the community versus what's happening to individuals.
One more.
Can we go one more time with that?
Yeah. With ideas and input coming from many agencies, groups, and citizens, do you have a plan to ensure as many citizens as possible are being heard, and not just those with more direct access to government officials?
Thank you. My girlfriend Kayla and I have been together for 12 years. She hates this about me, but I live by the Ed Thompson rule, that I will have a conversation about anything with anyone at any time, and it doesn't matter. Open door policy. She hates it because I'll just have a conversation with a random person in line at Walmart, and I don't even know them. They may not even be from Tomah. Conversation, and the value of a conversation is huge. Having grandparents that talked my ear off, I hated it, but I gained knowledge. And you gain understanding. I don't think you can go into any meeting at any level in politics if you haven't heard both sides open-mindedly. So the power of conversation is huge. And secondly, transparency is as much as people want to know. I go to city council meetings and I sit there and I see department heads, and that's it in the crowd. One guy I will give kudos to every time, Bob Karsten, has the same beef every month. But I'll respect the heck out of the guy because he shows up and he expresses it. Do we sit on the opposite side of it? On that one we do. But I'll respect the heck out of him because he comes and he sits in the same spot, has the same beef, and says his piece.
Okay, actually it starts with Remy on this one.
Nope. Me?
Yep.
Back to me?
Yep.
Sweet. Should cut that out.
Is that right? No, I messed up. It should, I'm sorry. It's Nelly. I'm sorry. Got it over here.
Sweet.
Okay, question number 11. Road conditions seem to be a high priority for citizens. What do you know of the current plans to repair the roads, and what can you bring to the table to help ensure we are doing the best we can for our citizens?
Well, I know a couple of years, I think it's been about 10 years, we did the Hollister project. That was costly, but it needed to be done because of the sewers underneath were very corroded. And like I said before, this community has sewers down there, water runs through the city, through the streets, and we just need to, we really need to focus on that. We need to be focusing on the roads and putting money aside to make them, repair them, fix them. Not 10 years from now. I think it needs to go soon, and if we can't do it, I know that we can't do it all at once, but we have to have some kind of plan to take streets, 4 blocks, 5 blocks, and get those roads repaired, because it's a need. It's very bad. Potholes, some of those areas down there are crumbling, and the city has to have a plan to start fixing the roads in our city.
Again, I'll reiterate what I spoke of before. The fact is that this isn't just about roads. This is about infrastructure. It's about the fact that you have to take a look at what needs to be repaired and when, based upon what lies beneath. Now, again, Kirk Garrity, the Director of Public Works, is not just sitting in his office and figuring out which roads we're going to do next week or 2 months from now. We have, come to any of the meetings. These meetings are open to come to. It is projected out for years where these projects are going, what roads are going to be fixed, when they're going to be fixed, because it falls under not only a fiscal responsible approach, but it also falls under feasibility. Again, there are only so many companies out there that can do the projects in a multifaceted manner. So again, they have to be handled in accordance with timing. We live in Wisconsin. The last few months have not exactly been real conducive to digging underground and digging up roads and replacing them. So we have limited time within each year. But there are plans in place. There are projects down the road. I mean, County ET, that is not going to happen for several years, but we're discussing it every single month. So trust me, there are plenty of plans on the roads. If you're interested in them, talk to the Director of Public Works or come to one of the meetings. We can inform you on them.
Again, we live in Wisconsin. Roads freeze, they unfreeze. Then they freeze again and they unfreeze. I think you have maybe 6-7 months where you can actually do some legit work that needs to get done. I don't know how long it took to plan our alley project, but under every road is a utility. So again, to tear it up once, just to do the utilities again, is not fiscally responsible. That would go in the category of spending money on things that we necessarily don't need to. Alley project was huge. Ask anybody who's traveled through our town that isn't from here and tried to take an alley prior to last year, probably bottomed out somewhere along there. And now I'm proud to say that we took forward steps into fixing that. Now we have some alternative transportation into there to the backside of our parking, backside of our businesses. But again, they get talked about all the time. I actually had the pleasure of sitting with Mike on the committees talking about when we talked about ET on our public works. There's a lot of moving parts. A lot of roads are county road. A lot of roads become county road at some point. How far do you go? Do you curb and gutter? Who do you assess? Nobody likes that part when it comes to getting assessed, but everybody loves the roads being fixed. But you need to put in new city sidewalks. Our ordinances set it a certain way that a new build pretty much says you're getting assessed. Nobody likes their taxes to go up, do they?
I believe this is an issue far beyond just the city, and this is where I believe we need to work the mayor needs to work as an activist to the state legislature, or the dirty word, a lobbyist to the state legislature. This is where we need to work with the legislature for infrastructure reform or to get the proper funding we need to this community. I've had the pleasure of having a great relationship with Nancy Vandermeer, and that's someone I would love to work with if elected mayor to get the funding we need statewide for this instead of spending valuable taxpayer dollars of our residents. That's we're gonna have to dig up the roads in 3 years anyways. Mike explained. But yeah, I think it's imperative that we work with our state legislature rather than just make this a city issue.
Okay, we're going to move on to questions from the audience. And our first question, what can the city do to help keep current businesses in Tomah? Or excuse me, what can the city do to help current businesses in Tomah?
Well, again, that it falls under, with some of the TID districts, we do have the availability. We made funding available for people to refurbish storefronts, improve their facades. Again, as a city, part of creating a desire for business, so on and so forth, that becomes a public relation issue. And if you're a member of the Chamber of Commerce, you work with the city. The Chamber of Commerce is a part of the city. I would, if you came to me and said, what can I do to improve my business or my visibility and things like that, if you have not talked to Tina, if you have not been down there to figure out ways that you can put your business forward, how many different projects do you guys work on where you're always looking for help, people making themselves as business owners visible, more visible within the community, as being part of projects and things that are going on in the city. So by becoming more involved with the city, that's how the city helps you become a stronger business.
Well, that's being passed. Can we go through that again?
Sure. What can the city do to help current business in Tomah?
Oh yeah, that's right. I actually hate going after Mike on these questions. Because again, it goes back to our question of how do you feel the city should work with your chamber? If you're gonna come to me and ask for business advice, mayor or not, I'm probably not your man to ask. But I'll direct you to some people that will help you out. I'll tell you that there's committees that I sit on that all the time get requests for funding through our districts, just to rehab their storefront or purchase the storefront. What's going on downtown Tomah as far as renovation compared to 24 months ago, occupied business is huge. We're growing, it's exciting, and what can we specifically do? Support that lady in her chamber, not her chamber, but our chamber. Go to your community events, support their board, buy local. That's how we can help out a little bit.
I think this goes back to Remy's open door policy. We need to actively listen to our small business owners. And this goes beyond just the chamber, which I believe the chamber is imperative in this, but it goes beyond that and it goes to the businesses that aren't part of the chamber. We need to actively listen, not just listen, but actively offer our help in any way possible, because next to our first responders, our local businesses are the backbone of our community. Once our businesses prosper, our community prospers. When Larkin GMC, when Murray's on Main, when the Crowbar, when the Break Room, when they prosper, our community prospers. This is where we come together as a community, and this is where we grow as a community.
I think that when they look at the budget, there should be a certain amount of money put aside for small business. Right now that small business get business loans. I know that we had a business that came to the city and asked for a small business loan to open a business, which was a grooming place. And the city helped them do that. Of course, there was interest involved to help. The city said, yes, we'll help you. This is what the interest rate is going to cost you. And they got help and they started their business. I know that the budget can be very tight. I've been there. But I think that maybe the city needs to set aside some kind of budget that they can use to help these small businesses, because they're the They're the people that work here, and they have their business here, and they rely on the city to help them. So whatever the city can do to make that easier for them to keep their business open is something that I would look at to help those businesses keep going.
Okay. Next question from the audience. Many of you have spoken about the growth of the city. Along with that brings a need for increased services such as police, fire, garbage, plowing, etc. What is your opinion on the current staffing levels within the departments to maintain these services?
That's a good question. As I was hearing that, my mind just processed what I was saying before. Is we're at a level where we're almost maxed out, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't include our departments in that. Obviously, when you get bigger, you're going to need to do things a little differently. With growth comes pluses and minuses. I think the plus side of this is you create some more jobs. The minus side, I don't really know that there is a minus side to it. There's always room for growth. I think if you ask every department head if they want more help, sure, they want more help. But it goes back to Mike's spot where fiscally responsible and what is feasible right now is a little bit different than what we all want. If you ask Kirk Garrity if he'd like 4 more plows on the road for the winter and 4 more just plow drivers, and then a whole separate garbage crew, I'm sure he'd take that. But as we grow, our departments are going to need to grow too. And I think what you're asking is if we should get a couple more employees in there, and I think the city should look at that for the budgets coming up and see what we can work in there. That's an interesting idea.
I would say, again, this goes back to a cost-benefit analysis. Do we need more? We need to look, do we really need this staff, or is it just going to be an extra cost to the city that we didn't really need, where this was a job that could have been done by 1 man, but now it's be done by 3. I think we need to look at what is going to be sufficient and what's just going to cost the city more.
As far as employees in the city right now, I think that we have enough. But there are 3 departments that I feel that needs to have the right employees. And that is police, because they are the ones that keep our city safe. And we always, as we grow, we're going to need them to continue. I mean, we're growing, we're expanding more more areas to police. Fire. We need to have enough employees in our fire department because, again, this is a safety issue in the community as we grow, and we have to have those people there, to keep that going. Ambulance, we need them. That is a safety issue also. Those are the most important things, keeping us safe, keeping fire and ambulance. Those are important, and we have to have the staff to make sure that we have our communities safe.
Well, this becomes one of those questions where there is no one brushstroke that's going to answer all of it, because it all becomes a matter of prioritization. Every situation is going to require a thorough examination of, do we really need more in this area or less in that area? Again, it's situational, it's circumstances. Every department will come forward with a viable argument as to why they need more staff. And again, that's where the strength of a city council, the strength of committees comes in, the strength of the city administrator, where we work together to make those decisions based on growth as to where we make adjustments. Again, we have to run the city like a business. You know, I immediately, Tyson's over here somewhere, but I immediately thought of Tyson, you know, because we're both in the restaurant business. You know, we would love to have all the staff we could possibly put in a restaurant. But again, you still have bills to pay. You still have things that have to be handled in a fiscally responsible manner. And you have to evaluate, is what we're spending going to come back as a positive residual effect to the city? And each and every situation has to be evaluated on its own merits.
This goes to Brett. Start off. Next question. How should the city of Tomah work with the WEDC, Forward Tomah, and the Monroe County Economic Development to attract more industry?
I would say taking in any considerations that they give us. Other than that, I don't really have an answer for that, but being an active member, being an active figure in that economic development, I think is imperative of the mayor.
Well, if we have a plan for the future, we need to work on economic development. We need to have a conversation with the people that's going to help that happen. And Tomah is, Tomah doesn't have a lot of land in the first place. I mean, it's very limited because of wetland. And so we have to have that conversation with someone that has a plan to find land that we can develop in the future. It's very limited. There isn't a whole lot, and it's getting scarcer because we are growing. Most of the land has been developed already, and so there has to be some kind of, we have to explore with the right people for the future of this community.
Well, growth and opportunity within a city, you know, part of that may be just sitting down and looking at what do we currently have as a community, and how can another business come in and work hand in hand. You know, we have businesses right now that are providing parts to Toro for their lawnmowers. So within a city, another business is helping, one business is helping another, and it helps them both to prosper. As we, work with Forward Tomah and things of that nature, perhaps, we keep looking at what do we have now, and are there partner businesses that might find Tomah as a viable option, not only from, the populace, from the surrounding populace, but also just for themselves, that if they're producing a product that doesn't have to have a ton of cost in shipping simply because it's across town, it's a win-win for both businesses.
Could we go one more time?
Yep. So how should the city of Tomah work with the WEDC, Forward Tomah, and the Monroe County Economic Development to attract more industry?
This is kind of a culmination of all of the questions. It takes a village to get things done. Here, this is on a county basis. County board, for whatever you think, is a vital role in how we expand as a city. A lot of what neighbors Tomah is county land. If we ever want to expand, which I think we need to do, which would be expanding our borders, we're going to have to be in collaboration with the county. And then not just doing it to do it, not just finding land and doing it. Let's think about it. Let's process it. Let's put something in there that's going to be a staple of the next 20 years of our city. Let's, again, work with our chamber. Let's work with the county. Let's all hands on deck on this, because it's not just a Tomah issue. Economic development or lack thereof is a county issue. And both Tomah, Sparta, everybody in it, we're the big sisters and big brothers of this place. It's up to us to lead that. And a little bit of collaboration and a little bit of open-mindedness, and back to the open door policy. Let's go back to listening to each other. A lot can get done through a conversation.
next question. It seems we are stagnant in our environmental attempts. Although homes have made progress, the city as a whole seems to be lagging behind. What can the city do to be more environmentally friendly?
Oh, that's a hard one. I guess what we're doing, we need to really look at what, again, the wetland that we have here and what we can do to clean it up so that we can have future development here. It's very limited of what we can do. State and federal and state has authority over it. So work with them, work with the state, work with federal to see what we can do for the environmental, so that we can use some of the land that is already wetland here in Tomah.
Well, I think currently, you know, we've made some adjustments, you know, through our recycling program. You know, it's become a lot more efficient. It's actually a methodology that by putting that truck in, it's helped cut back in a lot of areas from a labor standpoint, from a monetary standpoint. But you know, also there are things that I think people aren't seeing. You know, there's been farmland that's been purchased that can't be farmed anymore because what it's doing is it's taking the manure that would normally go into the creeks that would spill into Lake Tomah. It's cutting down on the phosphorus levels by purchasing some of those areas and the streams that feed into Lake Tomah. That is now making Lake Tomah a more vibrant lake for those that are anglers, you know, that go out. That, and again, it's keeping the lake a much healthier, you know, not only for people that are going to fish, but people that are going to spend time on the lake. Again, you know, from an environmental standpoint, I think it's trying to stay ahead of the diseased trees by getting those out and planting healthier, fresh trees. Again, you know, those are the steps that we can take as a city, step by step. Again, it's not going to happen in one fell swoop.
If any of us had a surefire way to fix global warming or the environment, we wouldn't be sitting up here. So I think that we all approach this with all ideas are welcome. But again, it goes back to the committees. Where's Lamont? I know I've seen him here. Lake Committee. Lake Tomah's at a spot where I haven't seen it in a while, which is having activity again. It's back to being a center of our city, and it's not a flowage anymore. People would fish there. Don't know that I'd go swim there yet, but people would fish there. And there's activity going in our parks as far as renovating our parks. Mayor Murray had mentioned the tree projects. People aren't thrilled about it, but we're not just going around cutting down trees. There's a reason. That particular reason is well above my pay grade, but again, we have some great department heads that have a level of transparency that really only requires a question to be asked. Be happy to ask that question, and as a representative, that's my job, and then to relay it back. But again, some of our committee heads are already on this. We have some great projects as far as to get some fish back in there. Lake Tomah's coming back to being a good part of our community, and I thank our committee members for handling that.
I would say it depends on what you're asking us to do. If it's for the tree program or to protect our lakes, absolutely. Recycling, absolutely. But again, this goes beyond our municipality. This is more of a county, this is a state, this is a federal issue. And if you're going to ask me to put limits on our small businesses, that's going to hurt our local economy and do virtually nothing to impact the macro aspect of the environment, then my answer is no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to hurt our economy to benefit almost nothing to the environment. And that's my stance on that.
Okay, so that's the end of our questions. We're going to allow 2 minutes per person for their closing remarks. And we're going to go in reverse order, so we're going to start with Mr. Murray.
Again, I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity to be here tonight. Really what it comes down to is just, all of you took time out to be here tonight, and I hope you share with other people what you heard tonight, what you learned tonight. If it came down to people voting based on desire, I think it's pretty much a dead heat. The reason the four of us are here is because we all have a different thought process or concept or approach, but it doesn't negate the desire we all have to see the city of Tomah continue to move forward. I feel as though I've been very productive in the 2 years as mayor, that we continue to move forward. If the decision is not to have me as the mayor from there on in, I'll do whatever I can to support who would become the mayor, because again, I still exist in this community. I still have a business in this community. I am still strongly involved with many of the special needs members of this community. It's the city I was born in, the city I live in, and it's very, very special to me regardless of what role I should hold. Again, I also want to reiterate the fact that it's not just about the mayor. It's about a mayor's ability to work with a city council, to work with people that are not getting paid much, that are taking time out of their valuable personal life to forward the city of Tomah. And again, it is not one person, it is not one department, it is not one individual that's going to change the direction of Tomah. It's the fact that it's a bunch of one peoples working together and coming up with the best concepts, the best thoughts, the best processes to move our city, continue to move the city forward and continue to move the city towards an area of growth, not only from a personal level, the amount of populace, but also prosperity level for all people that live in the community. And again, thank you all for your time tonight.
I'd like to close on this thought. It has always been important to be involved for a cause that matters to me. I'm not everyone's favorite, and I'm fine with that. Because at the end of the day, I can sleep knowing that the people I will serve are given the right chance as a city to move forward. I've always been involved in my community, and this is just another example of how important it is to me that opportunities as a community are going to be the right ones. And if I'm elected, I will work as a partner with all involved, making this city a place for change in a good way. I want to continue to be the voice of the people. I want to make sure tax dollars are spent wisely. And I want to continue that the city is moving in a positive direction. I want to promote city development. I want to reinstate confidence in the city representatives and ensure that the city government is once again respected in the community. I have always been actively involved in my community, volunteering for events, fundraising for a cause, or just helping out a neighbor. I've served 9 years as a council representative for my constituents and served 2 years as a city mayor here in Tomah.
Again, I would like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Like I said before, this is extremely important to our American democracy. I believe everyone up here has the same goal, and that is to move Tomah forward. We may have different ways of doing that, but that is ultimate our goal. So I hope we're helpful in steering you into the direction you want to for who you want as your next mayor, or to keep the current mayor. Ultimately, the experience itself, as young as I am, is more than I could ask for, and I would just like to thank you, everyone here again.
Same. Thank you to everybody for coming Thursday night. Not sure that there was a whole lot better to do, but this is what it's about. This is what small town, local politics, however you want to put it, is about. Is getting a group of people together for a common cause. I'll go ahead and say it. I'd like to thank our current mayor for the last 2 years of service. If you don't know Mike and you don't know that he hasn't worked his butt off for this city, then you didn't pay attention. That being said, I'm happy to see that we have another generation coming up that gives a darn. I hope I beat him, but I hope he comes back. That's awesome to see. Happy to see our former mayor coming back. I've lost, 3 elections now. Every time I lost, I learned something. Learned how to do it a little more. You think about the doors that you didn't knock on. You think about the hands that you didn't shake. You think about the little things that you didn't do, how you answered that first question, how I only wasted 45 seconds on an introduction when I could have said a lot more. Little things come into play, especially when you lose by 19 votes. The moral of the story is we all are here for a common goal, which is to keep it going. And we're not here for us. There's no grand scheme for any of us, that except maybe him, that really we're there to do anything for a little longer. We're here for Tomah. Tomah's our city. I'm a product of Tomah. What I think is good about Tomah, which is empathy and compassion for everybody, young and old, rich and poor, business owner or dishwasher, single parent or parent of 37. Tomah's a great place, and if we all come together, we can keep it that way. Thank you guys all for coming.
First of all, I want to thank all of the candidates for being here. It's a little challenging on occasion to try and schedule multiple people to be in the same room, especially when they're all so busy. But thank you for your attendance, your participation this evening. I would like to also thank the media, Deb Reed with Tomah Rotary and the Tomah High School for doing all of our timing today, Joe Minnie from Links 24 for moderating, taking that off my back. Certainly the city employees that are here, members of our council as well. We appreciate everything that you do for our community. Primary election is February 18th. I'm expecting everyone here to show up. And then general election is April 7th. So it will be narrowed down to 2 candidates on February 18th, and those 2 will be on the general ballot then in April. So thank you for your attendance. Please encourage your friends, neighbors, and family to vote as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so just been watching the Mayoral Candidates Forum at the Best Western on Thursday, February 6th. And as you can look around this room, you can see it was very, very well attended. So again, you've been watching the Mayoral Candidates Forum at the Best Western. That was held on Thursday, February 6th. Primaries coming up on Tuesday, February 18th. Please get out and vote.
That's all.